The night air felt heavy with October's chill as Evelyn lit the last of the candles in the attic. The old Victorian house, belonging to her grandmother, had been abandoned for years, but it still stood strong, its walls holding stories, memories, and perhaps something else. "We shouldn't be doing this," Noah muttered, shifting uneasily. He was the skeptic of the group, but even he felt the weight of unseen eyes. "Oh, come on," laughed Jade, her usual bravado hiding the slight tremor in her voice. "It's just a game." Isaac, always the fearless leader, set the Ouija board at the center of the attic floor. Dust swirled in the dim light, and the air smelled of aged wood and something faintly metallic. The planchette sat still, waiting. They started simple questions. "Is anyone here?" The planchette nudged forward. "YES." The group exchanged nervous glances, but excitement overpowered fear. They pressed further, giggling, daring the unseen presence to respond. "Who are you?" DHEGAME. The candles flickered. A cold draft curled around them, sending a collective shiver through their spines. Evelyn felt it first, a pressure in her head, like something was pressing against her thoughts. A whisper, not spoken but felt. A voice forming in her mind. It was playing. Evelyn had always loved her grandmother's house, at least in daylight. As a child, she would spend summers exploring its many rooms, weaving stories about hidden treasures and friendly ghosts. The attic, however, was off limits. Some things should stay undisturbed, her grandmother had warned. After her grandmother passed, the house remained empty, a relic of the past. That weekend, Evelyn invited her friends to stay over. A final farewell before the house was sold. What better way to say goodbye than a harmless seance? The house was a perfect setting for a ghost story. Creaking floorboards, peeling wallpaper, and furniture covered in white sheets. The friends sat up in the attic, laughing about the urban legends surrounding the place. No one was laughing now. Evelyn wasn't one to believe in ghosts. She was the logical one, the one who prided herself on skepticism. But as the night deepened, the attic felt heavier. The whispers in her mind grew clearer. The poltergeist, the game, was inside their heads. She tried to push it away, but it whispered back. "I know you, Evelyn. I know your fears, your secrets." Evelyn pulled her hands away from the board. "We should stop." "Why? It's getting good." Isaac grinned. He didn't feel it. None of them did, but Evelyn knew. Something had changed. The ghost wasn't just answering questions. It was listening, learning, adapting. As they packed up, the strange occurrences began. Jade's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I see you." Noah's reflection in the attic mirror lingered a second too long, a shadowy grin on his face when he had already turned away. Isaac found his backpack unzipped, but inside was something he didn't own. A small, old-fashioned doll. Its porcelain face cracked, Evelyn tried to dismiss it all as paranoia, but deep inside she knew the game had started and it wasn't over. Evelyn couldn't sleep. The attic's whispers still echoed in her mind. Something had touched them, not physically, but mentally. She could feel it, lingering, watching. She turned in bed, gripping the covers as the slats pressed down on her. Then her phone screen blinked to life. A message. "Let's keep playing." Her breath caught. It wasn't from any of her friends. The sender was unknown. The game wasn't over. The next morning she confronted the group. "Someone texted me last night." Jade shrugged. "Probably Isaac messing with you." Isaac shook his head, his face pale. "No, but I got one too." He held up his phone. The same message. "Let's keep playing." Noah's eyes darted between them, his usual skepticism cracking. "This is stupid. It was just a dumb board. We probably moved it without realizing it." "Then how do you explain this?" Evelyn whispered, pulling out the Ouija board. The planchette was missing. In its place, a single word was scratched into the wood. M-I-N-D-S. No one spoke. The air in the house felt dense, thick with something unseen. It wasn't a normal ghost. It was inside them, and it was learning. The group agreed to split up, searching the house for signs of what they had awakened. Isaac checked the attic. The candles were melted down to wax puddles, but the air was sharp with static, like a storm waiting to break. He caught his reflection in the cracked mirror. For a moment, his lips moved, but he hadn't spoken. Noah searched the library, flipping through old journals and records Evelyn's grandmother had kept. There were no mentions of hauntings, no deaths in the house. Nothing that explained this. Jade stayed in the living room, scrolling through paranormal forums on her phone. "Intelligent entities," she muttered. "They don't just haunt places. They haunt people." Evelyn sat alone in the kitchen, her fingers drumming against the table. A voice in her head whispered something soft, almost loving. "You're different from the others. You listen." She bolted upright. "No," she hissed. "You're not real." The voice laughed. "I am now." Strange occurrences escalated. The game was testing them. Noah's notebook went missing, only to reappear hours later, every page rewritten in his own handwriting. But the words weren't his. They told a story of a group of friends who played a game and never left the house again. Jade's phone glitched, flashing images of places in the house she hadn't been. The basement, the attic, the mirror. Isaac's shadow no longer moved in sync with him. Evelyn's nightmares became unbearable, except she wasn't sure they were nightmares anymore. She saw the entity standing over her, a featureless shape with shifting eyes. It whispered secrets about her friends. It knew their fears. And then, the worst part. A message appeared on the wall, written in scratches deep into the wallpaper. "Someone has to stay." They gathered again, desperate for answers. "We need to destroy the board," Isaac said. "But what if it makes it worse?" Jade countered. "It's already worse," Noah snapped. "We have to end this." Evelyn exhaled slowly. It's not the board. It's us. They stared. It's inside our heads. The board was just a door. It's not about the house. It's about what we gave it. Isaac clenched his fists. Then, how do we stop it? Silence. Then Evelyn's phone buzzed. Another message. I like this game, but we need a winner. That night the house changed. The doors locked themselves. The windows refused to budge. The lights flickered, and the air pressed heavy against their chests. Evelyn turned to her friends. It's making us choose. Jade's phone screen glowed with a new text. One of you leaves, one of you stays. A whisper slithered through Evelyn's mind. Choose, Evelyn. Who stays? The game had played with them long enough. Now it wanted an ending. The attic was suffocating, thick with an unnatural pressure. The shadows in the corners no longer felt like just shadows. They were shifting, watching. Evelyn could feel something slithering through the edges of her mind, curling into the dark places of her thoughts. The message scratched into the wall. Someone has to stay. Felt like a command now, not a suggestion. Jade turned in circles, her breathing fast and uneven. I don't want to be here anymore, she whispered. Her phone was still glitching, flashing images she hadn't taken. Dark hallways, empty rooms, a door she didn't recognize. Isaac held his head, pressing his palms into his temples. It's not just a ghost, he said through gritted teeth. It's in here. It's in us. Noah, who had been the most skeptical of them all, swallowed hard. If it's in our heads, then it knows what we're thinking. It knows what we'll do next. Evelyn closed her eyes, focusing. The game had no real form. It wasn't bound to the house, the board, or even the attic. It was bound to them. It was feeding off their fear, their hesitation, their paranoia, and it had learned to manipulate them. A low creaking sound echoed through the attic. The floorboards under their feet trembled. They were running out of time. Evelyn forced herself to think past the fear. We need to understand this thing before it's too late. Jade clutched her phone, knuckles white. What if there's nothing to understand? What if it just wants one of us? Isaac shook his head. It could have taken one of us already. Why wait? Why play games? Evelyn's eyes flickered toward the wall. The scratches weren't just random. They were deliberate, carefully placed. A message meant to be seen. Someone has to stay. She whispered the words under her breath. The flickering candlelight cast strange shadows around them, stretching across the walls like skeletal fingers. Evelyn turned to the others, her voice steady despite the dread curling inside her. I think it's testing us, she said. Noah flinched. Testing us for what? For obedience. Evelyn said slowly, it doesn't just want someone to stay. It wants us to offer someone. Jade's breath hitched. You mean it wants us to turn on each other? The moment the words left her lips, A sound like laughter filled the attic. High, distant, wrong. Evelyn felt something shift inside her mind. The whispers were getting clearer now. She could almost hear what it wanted. Isaac exhaled sharply. If we give it what it wants, we lose. Jade shivered. And if we don't? The answer came in the form of a low groan from the house itself. The attic door slammed shut behind them, the floor trembling as if something was shifting beneath them. Noah backed away from the door, eyes wide. I don't think we have a choice anymore. Evelyn's phone buzzed violently in her pocket. Another text from unknown. Your time is up. The game had made its choice. The air in the attic became suffocating, like all the oxygen had been drained from the room. The shadows thickened, twisting unnaturally along the floor and walls. Jade backed it against the far wall, clutching her head. It's trying to get inside my thoughts, she whimpered. I can feel it. Isaac rubbed his temples. It's pushing us. It wants to see who breaks first. Evelyn's mind raced. What was the game trying to prove? That they were weak? That they were selfish? That they would give in to fear? The planchette from the Ouija board slid across the attic floor on its own. It landed at Evelyn's feet. She stared at it, heart hammering. It was waiting for someone to pick it up, waiting for a choice to be made. Noah's voice was distant, hollow. It's not going to let all of us leave. Silence hung thick between them. Jade's phone glitched violently, the screen distorting into unreadable symbols before finally settling on one single word. Choose. Something moved in the attic. A low creaking breath, a shape just beyond the candlelight. Isaac swallowed hard. Evelyn, what do we do? Evelyn's pulse thundered in her ears. They weren't playing the game anymore. The game was playing them. And it was about to win. The attic door was sealed shut. The shadows around them thickened, stretching unnaturally, creeping closer like they had a mind of their own. Evelyn's breath came in sharp gasps. The entity wasn't just a presence anymore. It was here. Jade's phone flickered violently in her shaking hands. One new message. Time to choose. Isaac gritted his teeth, clutching his head. It's pushing deeper. I can feel it. It knows we're afraid. Noah's voice was barely a whisper. Maybe it's right. They turned to him, startled. His face was pale, drenched in sweat. He wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the shadows. The house, the board, the messages, he murmured. Everything's been leading to this. It's not going to let us go unless we finish the game. Evelyn's stomach twisted. It was working. It had turned all of them into pieces on its board. A new sound slithered through the attic, a slow, wet clicking, like a creature grinning. Then the attic light bulb burst. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then, a shape emerged. It stood just beyond the candlelight, a twisting, shifting thing, its body more shadow than flesh. Its face was ever-changing, flickering between features like it was trying to become them. The whispers in Evelyn's mind weren't whispers anymore. They were voices, familiar ones, her own voice, Isaac's voice, Jade's, Noah's. It was mimicking them. Evelyn took a step back. That's why it's been playing with us. The figure tilted its head. Jade's voice came from its gaping mouth, warped and wrong. Someone has to stay, Noah's voice followed. Make your choice. Isaac clenched his fists. It's been learning from us, taking pieces of us. That's why it wanted in our heads. Evelyn's heart pounded. It didn't just want someone to stay. It wanted to become one of them. And whoever it took wouldn't just be trapped. They would be consumed. Evelyn's mind raced. There had to be a way out, a loophole. The game was about rules, and rules could be broken. She turned to Isaac, Jade, and Noah. We don't have to choose. Jade's eyes widened, but it said, I don't care what it said. Evelyn clenched her fists. What if that's the real test? What if the only way to win is not to play at all? Isaac's breath hitched. You think if we refuse, it loses power? The entity lurched forward, its form flickering in and out of existence. The voices became a scream, furious, desperate. Play, choose, stay. Evelyn grabbed their hands. Whatever happens, don't let go. The game lashed out. The attic erupted into chaos. The walls groaned. The floor trembled. The shadows convulsed. But Evelyn and the others held on, refusing to give in. The entity shrieked, its form breaking apart. It had no control over them anymore. It had lost. The room exploded with light, and then silence. The attic door creaked open. The house was silent. The group stumbled out, their hands still locked together, alive. The game was over. Noah swallowed. Did we actually win? Evelyn exhaled shakily. I don't know, but we're still here. They left the house before sunrise, never looking back. As they walked away, Evelyn's phone buzzed one last time. A final message from unknown. See you next time. A single like can keep the ghost satisfied. For now.